And at the end of the day, that's not what a man is. You're not going to prove to me you're a man by beating the life out of another person. You're going to prove to me you're a man by having integrity and honor and all of those things.
Sure.
And so, ego's not your amigo. I love saying that's my favorite quote.
Right. And I think that. Hello, and welcome back to the Finding Idaho podcast, where we cover the Boise real estate market. We bring in small businesses and just talk about Idaho stuff in general. Today, we've got Terry Piper with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, we're going to chat with him in just a minute, but real quick, I want to do a market update. Since it is the first of the month, we want to point out here that these numbers are subject to change, just so you know. It usually takes a few days to get real accurate numbers because not everybody enters stuff into the MLS. And so since we're pulling this off just a little bit early, I want to let you know of that. But in Ada County for single-family homes, existing and new construction, for the month of May, we had a total of 827 units sold, a median sold price of $595,000, and an average days on market of 12. So comparing that to last month, the units have gone up a little bit. We had 805 units last month, $590,000 median sold price, and 14 days on market. So Ada County's actually picked up just a little bit in May compared to April. May 2021, we had 943 units sold, so a decent amount more sold, but that median sold price was $510,000, and average days on market was 9. Now you compare that to Canyon County. Again, we've got single family, new construction, and existing mixed here. For the month of May, we had 432 sold units, 448,412 for a median sold price, and 17 days on market. Now, check this out. Compare April, just this last month, we had more units sold. So it's a flip from Ada County. We had more units sold in Canyon County of 452 the month of April, and $455,463 for a median sold price. Wow. So Canyon County actually went down a little bit for the median sold price, and the days on market went up 1. So we really have a complete flip. The Canyon County went down just a little bit from April to May. Ada County went up just a little bit. I don't know what that means. We'll keep an eye on things. If you have any questions about the market, certainly shoot me a note, and we'll try to answer those as best as we can. Okay, so getting into our guest today, we got Terry. Terry, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, what your business is.
So I own 2 businesses. I own a holster company. I manufacture a hybrid holster. And then my main business is training. I train people how to protect themselves. And so I just got back from Wisconsin to get my training counselor certification. Mm-hmm. So now I'm able to train trainers.
Nice.
So not just the average consumer wanting to get their concealed weapons permit, but now I can train people to start their own training business.
Nice. So, wonderful.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this? How long have you been training and
I have been
stuff?
NRA certified for about 15 years. I've been USCCA certified for about 3 years. So I've been doing it 15 years. You know, all of us really start off as a weekend warrior.
Sure.
So we all had full-time jobs, and then weekends, whatever weekends we can, we would teach classes. And about 4 years ago, when I started my holster business, a little over 4 years ago, I figured, hey, I'm at the shop anyway every day, either making cold calls for holster sales or building holsters. And so I thought, I should just open up my calendar. And that's when I really started doing things full time.
Gotcha.
And so I come from a background where I, after getting NRA certified, I took jobs with companies like Forward Movement here in town. I took a job with Front Sight in Las Vegas as a part-time instructor, and so just really wanting to grow my abilities and my my passion for teaching and training and educating, and it all kind of stemmed from the pawn business, getting guns pointed at me almost on a daily basis.
Yikes!
And then when I was 16, my brother shot me with a 12 gauge inside our shop from about 3 feet away. So
was that on purpose or accidental? Or is there still debate?
They say accidental, but being as it's my brother and he's tried to kill me on multiple occasions, just kidding, not really. He has choked me a couple of times, but anyway, used to pick me up by my throat. And
yeah, of course.
Anyway. So no, it was accidental. He was playing around with a Winchester Model 97
Yeah.
and lack of education, lack of training. As he was trying to figure out how to get all the rounds out, he pushed found the button that didn't open the gun, but actually activated the trigger,
Right.
and ricocheted off the floor and hit me in the calves.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I'm a lead bucket. So that's what really fueled my passion for what I do.
Absolutely.
And then I watched my dad almost blow my mom's head off playing with a black powder pistol. And so those things kind of shaped my passion for doing what I do, teaching and training, and not just providing, cookie cutter training, but adding value through success and the right techniques and
Absolutely.
things like that. So
Nice.
love to do it. It's not a job to me. It's really what I love to do.
Right.
So
I love it. So, here we are in Idaho, obviously a lot of guns around. Most of us that grew up in the area here,
Yep.
Grew up around guns to some degree
Yep.
or another, whether it was hunting or just shooting for, pleasure and sport and stuff
Yeah.
that way. But, a lot of guns around Idaho, obviously.
A lot of guns.
Tell us a little bit about, just what it's like as far as gun ownership within the state of Idaho.
So, as you said, those of us that grew up here, we grew up hunting and fishing and, shooting birds and doing all of that, hunting deer. And, honestly, so we grew up with that idea that we always had
Right.
guns. I remember driving to school with a gun in the rack in the back of my truck.
Yep.
And so very laid back, very open. And, obviously the times have changed a little bit.
Sure.
But, like I always explain to people, a lot of people come to me for training and they're like, I've been hunting and fishing my whole life. I'm like, that's really, really cool, except for we're talking about a short-range, non-precision weapon in a handgun
Right.
that we can't treat it the same. And so those people find out, even though they've been shooting their entire life, oh, well, this is a lot harder than I thought it was.
Sure.
To do it right. And
I knew that was the case for me, when I grew up around guns and I was comfortable with guns. I was
Yeah.
very comfortable shooting shotguns and rifles.
Yeah.
And then, I got my first handgun and I'm like, okay, I shot a handgun once, twice, maybe, I think.
Yeah.
And even then it was my dad's 45 and I just remember it hurting mostly, as,
Yep.
as a
Just
12-year-old or whatever I was. And,
not having the right training
Exactly.
and education for how to treat that particular weapon, not
Sure.
that other long range,
Yes.
more precision gun.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, it kind of changes. But Idaho being laid back, most gun owners own lots of guns. It's not just, oh, I have a gun, I own a gun. We got rifles and shotguns and pistols and black rifles and
Sure.
all the goodies and all the tricks. And
Right.
so Idaho's pretty great for that. We have a pretty laid back, casual society. And depending on demographic, you go up north and having an open carry gun isn't as big a deal, but you get into the city and it kind of that changes.
Makes some people uncomfortable.
It really does.
Sure.
And I always say we don't do things based on something that we have the right to do. We do things that are reasonable and prudent given the environment, the demographic, and the
Right.
Society that we're in that moment. And so many people kind of get that attitude with a gun. Well, it's my right. Don't tell me what to do. And I'm like, at the end of the day, we don't really want to have that attitude. We want to have the attitude, hey, I don't want to upset anybody or make anybody uncomfortable.
Sure.
So if I can hide it and put it away, then no blood, no foul.
There's a
Nobody cares.
balance in there somewhere that
Oh, absolutely.
you
There's
know.
a time and a place for
Sure.
everything. And I always say that, depending on where you are, there's a time and a place for everything. So I'm not discounting open carry. I'm just saying it's, it sometimes comes with an attitude.
Right.
And all of us could lose the attitude.
Yes.
My favorite quote in all the world, ego's not your amigo, which I stole from Matt Schneider when I worked for him at Forward Movement.
Nice.
And that's kind of my my motto in life. Ego's not your amigo. We kind of think we get it all figured out, and we really never figure it out. Mm-hmm. So, and we were kind of talking earlier about an expert. Well, honestly, there's no such thing because an expert knows everything, right?
Right.
Well, how many of us know everything about everything? We don't. And so even the world, people call me a gun expert. And I know a lot about guns because I grew up doing it and I do it every day. And so I might be a subject matter expert, but I'm not an expert. An expert, is probably light years ahead of me as far
Sure.
as education goes. And
Right.
so I never consider myself an expert, just somebody who's got a lot of experience doing what I do.
Right. Love it.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about, just as far as the training stuff is concerned, obviously in Idaho, anybody can open carry or conceal carry, right?
Yep. We have permitless carry, or what they call constitutional carry.
Sure. But doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Correct. And that's
right?
what I'm talking about. There are a lot of cowboys out there with guns
Yeah.
that have that attitude. I know what I'm doing. And it's funny to me when they actually decide, hey, I'm going to get a permit so I can travel to other states.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come to my class and go, whoa. They're like, oh, yeah, I know what I'm doing. No, you
Mm-hmm.
don't.
No, you
think
don't.
you do. You think you do. And
Right.
And we all do. We're geared as humans to have that psychology. We always win.
Sure.
Until crap hits the fan.
Yeah.
And then we realize, hey, we think we're going to rise to the occasion, and we never do. We always fall back to our highest level of education.
Sure.
And most people just have the attitude. They don't have the education. They
To
have
actually back that up.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
And so they find out that without the right technique, without the right ideology, without the right information and emotional mindset, it's kind of a fail at the end of the day.
Sure. Sure.
And I see a lot of guys that have that attitude that think that gun comes with a cape, and it doesn't. It's a false sense of security. And
Yeah.
so I see it almost every day. And I have folks that are very humble, that are brand new. Those are the easiest ones to teach.
Sure.
My worst nightmares are typically that guy, I was in the Marines for 8 years, and I was an instructor, and I did this, and I did that, and
Right.
gives me this whole list of credentials of what they do. And
Sure.
at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, you're shooting better.
Right. Yeah.
Just learning the right technique.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. And when you're, in law enforcement or military, you have rules of engagement. You have an objective. You go there with tactics and teams, and to meet this objective of taking the fight to the enemy, not like letting them bring it to us.
Right.
And in this world of personal defense, it's really kind of the opposite. We want to create space from the enemy. We don't want to, and not to call them the enemy, but the subject, that person who's
Sure.
creating the imminent threat of great bodily harm or death. We want to try to avoid this, because at the end of the day, we got to look at what's in our best interest,
Right.
not what we have the right to do.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, you think, okay, well, I've got the right to do this, but if you end up dead or in jail, your objective really was to go home and see your family at the end of the day.
Right.
And if that's not met, was that really in your best interest? And so that's really what I teach. God did not design us to kill, maim, and destroy.
Right.
We're not wired for it. We're not geared for it. But we got to be willing to step across that line
Right.
of something that we're just not designed to do. And if
And
you
that's a
can't,
very
you have
tough
no
thing.
business with a gun.
It's.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I mean, I pray to God I'm never in that situation.
And
where
that's
I
our
would
hope,
need
is
to
that
make
it
that
never
decision.
happens.
Right. But I can't imagine. I would hope that I would step into that role if it was absolutely necessary. But man, that's a very sobering thought.
It is, and there's a lot of offset mentally, emotionally. Your emotions are getting involved, and what I like to tell people is, at the end of the day, your emotions will send you down the wrong road. They'll betray you, and I always tell people, it's never been my objective to persuade or dissuade anybody in all of this. It's more, if you can't step across that line, you have no business with a gun. And I'm just going to give you the realities. The realities are, you will fail if you don't spend time doing this craft, because that's what it is. At the end
Sure.
of the day, it's like Tiger Woods. He wasn't born a golfer. I'm sure his dad handed him a club on the way out, but
Right.
he wasn't born a golfer. He learned how to do it, and
Right.
he did it
Still
every
takes
day.
a lot of work.
It does. And anybody who plays football, basketball, or anybody that's good at what they do, they spend time doing it. And
Right.
That's where the offset is. Our brain tells us that we're just good at everything we do. And it's not what happens. Our emotions get involved. And I've got so many stories of parents shooting their own kids. Or this last year, a Florida man shot and killed his pregnant wife in their kitchen because he let an emotion elicit a response that he couldn't take back. And that's typically what happens with an untrained person.
Right.
The emotions get involved, whether that be fear or anger or revenge or whatever it is, and then they make a decision they can't take back at the end of the day.
Right.
And so that's really my objective, is to teach people to do something that's in our best interest, not something we have the right to do.
Sure.
And
I like
so
that.
we don't train to kill. That's not our objective. That's not our job. My job is to go home and see my family at the end of the day. And however I can meet that objective is always going to be in my best interest.
Right.
And typically the gospel I always preach is, you'll never lose a gunfight you're not in.
Right.
You'll never lose a knife fight you're not in. You'll never lose an argument or a fist fight. And so at the end of the day, I meet my objective by, and I get asked the question all the time. I've been carrying a concealed weapon for 30 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever drawn your gun on somebody? No, I haven't. Well, why not? Well, because I find other ways around it, because if I have to get that gun out, there's an offset there, either legally, emotionally, something. And I've had some trauma in my childhood, and so I've, seen some ugly things and been in some ugly places, but I always try to find a way to avoid the fight. And if I can avoid the fight, there are no ramifications.
Right.
And so
I like that.
Yeah, that's always my objective, is always try to find a way out of it. If you can't avoid it, you escape it. If you can't escape it, well, then you use those skills that we learn. And I remember showing up my first day for karate, because I got picked on a lot as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my dad take me to the college in Ontario, TVCC.
Nice.
And signed me up for karate. And I remember meeting my karate instructor for the first time and loved Bart Coy, Keishin-kan karate.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed up and I'm like, yeah, I get picked on all the time, so I'm ready to just kick some butt. And he goes, well, we don't do that. And I'm like, what? This is karate, right? Isn't that kind of the point? And they're like, no, when you learn a skill that can hurt people, you do your best to avoid that, and you only use it when you need to.
Right.
And I'm like, I kind of remember going, oh, yeah, whatever. But I learned self-control, discipline, and exponentially more so with a gun
Sure.
than having some sort of skill that you can hurt somebody.
Right.
And some things happened in my childhood where I got into a fight after I had learned how to avoid the fight, because I escalated it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know why, but that was my day to be a butt.
Right.
And ended up hurting somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, that's not what a man is. You're not going to prove to me you're a man by beating the life out of another person. You're going to prove to me you're a man by having integrity and honor and all of those things. And
sure.
So, ego's not your amigo. I love saying that. It's my favorite quote.
Right. I think that sums up a lot, though, right there. So.
Oh, absolutely. If we just learn to be better to other people than we are ourselves, we could change the world. But
sure.
We live in a self-serving, it's all about me, it's about my rights. And so that's where we've that's the culture today.
Sure.
Everyone's like, me first.
Right.
Instead of no, go right ahead. Help yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so when we're talking about training and kind of getting, into the nitty-gritty of, being able to shoot your handgun and getting more comfortable and things that way, what are some things that you commonly see as mistakes that people are making? Obviously, I imagine it's
a list
all
it's
across
a
the board.
List, yes.
But what are some things? Let's take just the average Joe who maybe even has the concealed weapons permit already, but just isn't super well trained. I would think that I'm kind of in that category where I've got my concealed weapons permit. I'm
You took
pretty
a one-day
comfortable,
class
right?
Got you your state minimum.
Went out and shot 100 rounds, and that sort of thing. I'm relatively comfortable going out and shooting, but I'm not very accurate.
And that's part of the problem. What I see with a lot of people is they spend a lot of time shooting, but they don't know how to fix what they're doing wrong.
Right.
So they waste a lot of money. Because honestly, I always tell people, at the end of the day, I can show you how to shoot without ever leaving the comfort of your home.
Mm-hmm.
If you learn the right technique, you learn the right idea behind what is offsetting those shots, well, then you learn how to shoot better.
Sure.
And so you teach somebody how to shoot, well, then they can, my philosophy is to teach people how to teach themselves.
Sure.
What skills can I give this person when they leave here today that I've ingrained in them, or maybe not ingrained, but I've said it so many times. And I tell people, I pray to God you go home and dream about this, because this is the secret sauce. It takes this, and this to make that gun, that short-range, non-precision weapon, go where it's supposed to. And you do these certain elements, and once that gun is pointed where it's supposed to go, I always tell people, I guarantee it's aimed where it's going to shoot.
Sure.
But if you don't do things right, there's where the offset comes. Sights move around, gun moves around, we grip, we squeeze, we flinch, we whack that trigger. We play whack-a-mole with the trigger. We start whacking it like this, and that creates movement. And
sure.
So, and at the end of the day, the reality is a lot of times you're in a lethal encounter. You are just pointing in and activating that trigger. You're not really paying attention to those sights. It's what we call unsighted fire. Well, if you don't do it properly, even though it's close range, I've seen close range shots completely miss because you didn't do it right. And
Right.
so my objective is to teach people the right technique. And that's, I'm a very technique-based instructor, knowing that most of the time we're probably going to do unsighted fire, but if you learn the mechanics.
Right.
You know, I was a service manager, and I always talk about copiers. If you understand the 7 processes, well, back in the analog days, the 7 processes it took to make a copy, it's a lot easier to troubleshoot what's going on with it. But if you don't understand the process, you're never gonna know how to fix it. And
Sure.
so my objective always at the end of the day is show you, okay, I'm gonna teach you how to teach yourself, and I'm gonna show you some drills that are gonna lock things into your brain. Oh, this is why things are moving. Okay, and once you understand that, man, I've seen, you know, I've had FBI agents in my class, CIA agents, I've had Navy SEALs and Special Forces, and at the end of the day, everybody learns how to shoot better.
Right.
And, you know, unfortunately, especially in law enforcement, a lot of times they teach you how to pass an exam. They don't teach you how to shoot.
Sure.
They're like, here's what you got to do to pass this exam. Well, my philosophy is if you teach somebody how to shoot, they can pass any exam.
Right.
Right? If they know what they're doing wrong and know how to fix it, know how to engage things at short range, long range, medium distance, or whatever it is, they can pass any exam.
Right.
Because they know those mechanics. They know that process.
Nice.
So,
Love that. Okay.
yeah.
So, excuse me. So with those techniques, I mean, you know, without, because obviously I'd assume you'd need to watch somebody shoot.
Oh, I do.
In order
fact, I get asked the question all the time because I'm always posting pictures on Facebook.
Right.
Well, I'm always bleeding. Well, and people are like,
I've seen those pictures before multiple
why
times.
are you, and if you look at my index finger, you'll notice it's almost always got contusions on it. Well, that's part of being a good instructor.
Sure.
When I take people out and I teach them how to shoot, one of the first things I do is show them how to activate their trigger, which means I have them get pointed in, get these elements that it takes to what I call the secret sauce to make that gun point where it's going to shoot. And then what I do is I activate the trigger with them the very first time. So I put my hand on the back of their hand, their finger's on the trigger, but I tell them just relax. I don't want you to do anything. I want you to focus on what I call sight alignment, sight picture.
Right.
And I put my finger on their finger on the trigger. I show them how to get the slack out of the trigger, and then I press the trigger for them. And I'm talking to them, relax, 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 because I want them to focus on my voice.
Right.
And when they focus on my voice while they're maintaining those things that I told them to get, the trigger goes off without them expecting it. So they're not trying to anticipate it.
Sure.
Well, I'd say probably 90% of the time when I activate the trigger with that person the first time, it always lands in the orange in the center of the target. Almost always. Probably 95%.
Right.
The ones that don't is because they fought me on it.
They're not actually relaxing.
No, relax your finger. No, stop. Or they'll they're trying to anticipate. And I had a guy Saturday that was shooting a revolver, and he said, I have never in my life, in years of shooting this revolver, ever hit the orange. And after I showed him how to activate his trigger, he was consistently hitting the orange.
Nice.
And he's like, dude, I've taken a lot of classes, but nobody ever taught me how to shoot. And the problem is, especially these guys moving to Idaho for the first time that didn't have access to guns. They're coming in, they're buying a case of ammo and a gun, and they're going out to the range and they're shooting, and they can't figure out what they're doing wrong. They're like, okay, I shoot and it's hitting here, so they mechanically offset the gun.
Right.
Well, that makes it maybe shoot okay that next time, but then the next time it's a different direction.
Right.
Because they didn't fix the problem.
Right.
And that's what I was going to explain about my finger. That's how I get busted in the knuckle. When I'm holding somebody's hand on the back, creating this isometric tension, and then I activate the trigger for them. Some people have a very flat, wrist, and then with those small guns, I can't get my finger down far enough not to get bit by that slide when it recoils. And that's how that blood always happens. And there are times I've gotten busted in the knuckle 5-6 times in one afternoon, and my finger is just and so I just call it a hazard of the job. I know it's going to happen. I don't flinch. It's just something that happens, and you get used to it.
Right.
And so that's that discomfort that you're going to feel because it's going to happen. And so, but to me, that's just being a good instructor, making sure they understand, hey, this is what it feels like.
Right.
And then I teach them a drill, what I call the dry practice drill or the ragged hole drill. That helps them drive home this idea, okay, when it goes here, it's because I did this. When it goes here, it's because I did this. And it teaches them to work on things themselves.
Right.
And
then troubleshoot the problem that they're having.
exactly.
Down the road.
And so when I'm watching people and coaching people, I'm not watching the target. I can look at that later and say, oh, yeah, you did this, you did that, or more likely this happened or that happened. But I'm watching them right here because I always say if you fix it at the firing line, if you fix it right here, it goes right out there. If it's wrong here, it's wrong out there. So we got to fix it at the source and not mask or cover up the problem.
Sure.
And so,
Because if you're masking that, I mean, you can even look at the target and sometimes be right on as far as the target looks.
but because you made some
But it's
sort of
because,
offset,
yeah,
but it's
you're
not consistent.
overcompensating here, and then,
Yes.
that consistency is.
And I
is
saw
gone.
it in the Virtua simulator at Forward Movement. You put somebody in a simulation, and they just go bang, 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 and they're whacking their trigger, and their shots are all over the place. And we could turn on or off the fall of shot, which meant you could see the holes as they were being shot.
Oh,
And when they first started, I would leave it on, and then I would turn it off. And they're like, "Where'd my shot go?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Where was your gun pointed?" And they're like, because what they would do is track it. So they'd see the shot over here, so they'd make a mechanical offset with the gun
Right.
to get it on target, which might work once,
Right.
but it never works twice.
Sure.
Because you're not fixing the problem.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, fix the problem and learn how to shoot. Because at the end of the day, when you're looking at a target that's got tidy little holes in it, all that's doing for you is verifying that your technique is correct.
Sure.
So if you learn how to manipulate that gun without any rounds in it, well, then it doesn't change when you put bullets in it. It's just that the gun's going to do the work for you.
Right.
And eject and load and do all of that. But at the end of the day, all those bullets are really telling you, yep, technique is right. Nope, wrong. Nope, wrong. Nope, wrong. Yep. Telling you that you did something right.
Yeah.
And so when people hit the center of their target on a ragged hole drill, I'm like, see that? Keep doing that.
I like
And
it.
it's usually the first, second shot after I teach this concept of, hey, you activate that trigger properly, and that shot's going to land exactly where that gun's
Right.
pointed.
Love
And
it.
so, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so for people that are watching and listening, how do they get a hold of you if they want to go do some training like this? Secondary question to that also, have you when if you haven't already, are you going to start training the trainers?
Training the trainers.
So both of those.
I'm meeting with my actual training counselor today. We're having
Okay.
lunch, and I would imagine I'm probably going to sit in on a few of his classes and teach a couple of blocks of that stuff, just to kind of get my toe in the water.
Sure.
I mean, you go for it was a 2-day training for me in Wisconsin. And we learned a lot of valuable stuff: how to teach, how to teach back, and do all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, the experience is what really gets you there. And so I'm going to do as many co-teaching opportunities with my training counselor and then the local USCC guy in Pocatello to try to get that experience and just make sure I understand it before because there's nothing worse. Being a copier tech, I always relate making copies of copies. Because if I'm a bad instructor and I instruct somebody and then they go out and instruct somebody and it's degraded, it's like making a copy of a copy. And then you make a
It's
copy
only
of
going
that
to get
copy.
worse as you go down.
Yeah, at some point you can't even read the copy.
Right.
And so I don't want to produce instructors like that. I want to produce instructors just like I do with students. I want my students to be better than average. I'm not happy with, well, here's this cookie cutter thing and, now you're certified. Well, no. I could care less how many rounds you shoot. I could care less how much time we spend doing it. What I want to know is that at the end of the day, you understand what you're doing wrong, how to fix it, and then improving yourself. Don't try to beat people. Just try to be a better version of yourself than you were yesterday. And
Love it.
So that's my MO. So,
Good.
and what was the?
So then with that, we're going to be a while before you start doing the training.
And I would imagine probably in 3 months I will
Okay.
be doing instructor training on my own.
Nice.
So over the next couple of months, if I can get a few, co-teaches under my belt, I think I'll be ready to go.
And then, so how do people, as far as just training students on how to shoot?
So
How do they get a hold of you?
IdahoEnhance.com is my website.
I'm sorry, I just talked over the
Oh,
top
sorry.
of you. Say it again.
IdahoEnhance.com.
IdahoEnhanced.com.
Yep, that is my
Okay.
website, and I do private tutoring training. I do corporate classes. So if companies want to train their employees, I can do it on site. I can do the training on site, and then we go out to the range and finish those and certify them for the Idaho Enhanced, but also get everybody all in one shot.
Love
I
it.
do private midweek training, so Monday through Friday. If it's just 2 people, 4 people, or 6 people, that's a private class, and it's just you. There's nobody else in the class. It's not the typical weekend class where I have my classes are typically 10 to 12 people. I don't do big classes. But I do contract with another company, a national company, that I do all the Cabela's and Sportsman's Warehouse classes.
Okay.
So those are like 25 to 35 people, students at a time. So I train a lot of people. I don't have time to key in on the training for those classes. My class is way more in-depth and specialized.
Sure.
So
because you got more time because you have less students.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I don't have to relay them. I don't have to do two because there's no way I'm letting 35 people shoot at the same time. So
Right.
I do 15 and 16 or, whatever that number comes out to. We buddy coach. And
Sure.
It takes a lot longer, and I don't have time to press the trigger or show people, activate that trigger with them the first time.
Right. Not to mention you don't have enough blood to spill for that many people
Exactly
too
right.
in one day.
And definitely not enough time, enough blood. So, but anyway, I like
Nice.
to keep my classes small and more intimate.
Yep.
So.
I like it. All right, man. Well, so those of you watching, listening, go check out Terry's website, idahoenhanced.com.
And for holsters, Ultimate Hybrid Tech.
There we go, ultimatehybridtech.com for the holsters. And if you have any questions for him or for me, reach out. We'd love to answer anything that we can, or at least point you in the right direction. Yes, he can. It's absolutely true. So anyway, we appreciate you guys watching and listening.
Thanks for having me on, Andy.
Give us a subscribe here too and a like. And thanks for joining us, Terry. It's
Absolutely.
awesome.